Welcome to all of you for this meeting of the Asia-Europe People's Forum. The topic of the crisis of patriarchy, the impact of European colonization on peace and security. We live in a most challenging and dangerous time where locally and globally we are confronted by war and threats of war, while non-traditional threats to peace and security are ever increasing. Among these are poverty and resource scarcity, climate change, and pandemics. We now have a raging pandemic in our midst that has killed millions of people. In these meetings discussions, our speakers are going to dig into the roots of these threats to peace and security. Dr. Susan Hawthorne shall discuss how the crisis of patriarchy is a war that has many fronts, how it is a war against women across the world and a war against the planet. Farida Akhtar of Ubinig in Bangladesh will share with us about the ungendered history of 200 years of colonialism under the British East India Company that destroyed Bangladesh agriculture and continues to destroy its biodiversity to this day. We will also hear the reactions of women members and friends from the Peace Women Partners from India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Korea, and Japan. Uh, just briefly, I would like to introduce the Peace Women Partners is an organization of educators, artists, professionals, and grassroots women from Asia Pacific and Africa who are united by a vision of a world free from all forms of violence against women. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator, Ms. Priscilla Tulipa. She is a registered social guidance counselor and finished her MA in Women and Development at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and her MA in Gender and Peace Building at the University of Peace in Costa Rica. She is currently a PhD student in the University of the Philippines Department of Anthropology. Pressy works as a university extension specialist at the Office of Anti-Sexual Harassment in the University of the Philippines and is a National Council of Leaders member of the Peace Women Partners.
Thank you, Mercy. Ayan. Good evening to everyone and good day to other co-women activists in other countries. For our keynote address, it is my pleasure to introduce to you a fellow co-women activist. No? She has been engaged in the women's liberation movement since 1973 and working in Rape Crisis Center, Aboriginal education, and teaching English to Arabic-speaking women. She has degrees in philosophy, ancient Greek, political science, and Sanskrit. She is the author of 5 works of nonfiction, including books such as Wild Politics in 2002 and Vortex in 2020. She has also authored 3 works of fiction, 9 collections of poetry, and edited 11 anthologies. And she has been organizing a number of feminist festivals for women writers. She is also an adjunct professor in the School of Arts and Social Sciences at James Cook University, Townsville, and the publisher at Spindex Press in Australia. And it's my pleasure and honor to welcome to you our keynote address from Australia, Dr. Susan Hawthorne.
Thank you very much, Prissy. It's a great delight to be here tonight. And thank you to everybody who is involved in organizing and being behind these events. As a resistance to colonization, In Australia, we acknowledge the traditional Indigenous owners of the land. Today, I'm speaking to you from Jiru country in far north Queensland, where I live and work. I acknowledge the 65,000 years of sustainable care for the land, which was never ceded. I just want to mention that I won't be speaking about the pandemic this evening because in Australia, I am not as well informed as people elsewhere. And it's clear, but it is clear that globalization is a significant part of the problem. And I will be talking about globalization. In her book, The Daughters of the Pacific, Zolda Ishtar writes about the way in which Europeans have had a profound effect on the lives of the colonized. She writes, Europeans dominate the processes of knowledge through the imposition of our own cultural reliance on the written word. As a result, the knowledge contained within oral traditions is silenced. Ishtar also notes that it is, after all, our people who have forgotten to listen. So I want you to bear that in mind as I give my talk. And today I want to speak about the process of colonisation. Europe is, of course, not the only region to colonise outsiders. Colonising has also been done throughout history by Persians, the Chinese, the Arabs, the Romans, the British, the Americans, and others throughout history. But over the last 5 centuries, colonisation has been especially rampant coming from Europe. And as an Australian, it's also the system that I know best. Enclosing the land in the 16th and 17th centuries meant privatising it, making it commercially valuable and transferable. The outcome for the poor was dispossession, since they no longer had access to publicly held land, the commons. The enclosure of land significantly transformed the lives of peasants and villagers whose reciprocal obligations were suddenly severed. No longer was there any cause for the woman to adjust her neighbour's cow for free. No longer would anyone plough the fields of other villagers in neighbourly reciprocity, and a whole swathe of communal village activities which traditionally took place on the village green ceased to be possible, unless a rental fee was paid to the owner. Land became a possession, something to be traded commercially. Like today's Indigenous communities, European peasants had been possessed by the land as it passed down through the generations and between the people of one community. By that I mean
marry her because of the
owning.
wealth of the family name.
Can you turn down the sound, someone, please? Be on mute. Thank you. The enclosure movement brought fragmentation, a parcelling up of the land into plots valued according to their productivity. People began asking for wages when they worked on their neighbour's land. Time was divided into working hours and non-working hours, but women continued to work without a break all through the non-working hours, as well as at times when mostly men went out to work for wages. The poor too could not easily fragment their time, especially as many had become landless with the introduction of fences. Similarly, the Indigenous owners of colonised lands were dispossessed, their land now being invaded by the colonising farmers, miners and townsfolk, and where some land remained for them to use, it was claimed by governments and its use could easily be revoked in the event of a lucrative mineral discovery, and that is still true today. I want to speak about a word, deterritoriality. Valerie Kulitz, who did work on in the western part of the USA, describes deterritoriality as the ultimate in separation between self and nature. Implicit in the notion of separation is dividing the world from the person. There is the European and the other. There is man and nature, read as woman. Division and dislocation lend themselves to the systemic negation of the other, which is then redefined as having the sole purpose of serving the needs and desires of man, European man, that is. At the centre of this worldview is the logic of domination and disconnection, which is critical for a system based on profit. Deterritoriality lies at the centre of colonisation. The initial move is invasion and theft of land. The theft and rape of women come in quick succession. Both are considered empty vessels, that is, land and women. Colonisation and deterritoriality go hand in hand and make it possible for the coloniser not to give a damn about the people he, mostly he, is dispossessing of land, language and culture. The imposition of sameness or homogeneity is applied to everyone else, false universalism, and ignores location and local conditions, decontextualisation. These ideas have been structured into Western approaches to economics and ecology, to land and natural resources, and to the bodies of the other. Or, as Nicole Brossard writes, making an effort to be normal. That's what it is to be colonised. As Max Dashu writes, patriarchy is the necessary foundation for colonisation, empire, feudalism, and capitalism. The wars against women are set against the wars against the planet. Women's bodies are captured, they are subjected to violence, and the third largest expenditure of any sector is in the sex trade. For it to be so high, an enormous number of women's bodies are used for men's enjoyment. There is no freedom in prostitution. It creates despair, ill health, and all too often death. See Rachel Moran's fabulous book, Paid For. This breaking of the spirit is an inherent part of all forms of colonisation. We see misogyny today patterned on the breaking of the spirit through rape, assault, high levels of violence against women in the home and on the streets. The murder of women is at an all-time high. Christine Stark writes about Christopher Columbus as the first trafficker of women in the Americas. And we see this around the world wherever one country is impinging on another. In the 1990s, women became a focus of development projects. And as Vandana Shiva says, that this was a continuation of the process of colonisation. How has the process of colonisation, deterritoriality, been adapted in the 20th and 21st centuries? Instead of states heading up colonisation, they are now corporatised. Patent law, which began with the European monarchs issuing letters patents, claiming private ownership of land, has been transformed into private patents by large multinational corporations. Prospectors make claims on parcels of land looking to make a profit from mining. The new bioprospectors make claims on biological resources with a view to making a profit. I call this biocolonialism. In my book Vortex, The Crisis of Patriarchy, which was published last year, I look at the parallels between two kinds of biological resources. One, land that is inhabited by indigenous and traditional peoples, as well as the resources of rivers and seas. Two, the bodies of colonised and isolated peoples, of women and lesbians, as well as people with disabilities and chronic diseases. Just as the bodies of the poor, people of colour and women have been colonised in preceding centuries, along with the colonisation of land, so too the methods employed in bioprospecting are also colonising. The difference is that this latest permutation of colonization is occurring in the knowledge-based sector. Sorry, I just lost my spot. Yeah. Privatization is achieved through patents, through the exploitation of women's bodies, of body parts such as women's eggs, egg cells or wombs, or the cell lines of isolated populations, and through appropriation of knowledge that has been handed down over generations, very frequently by women. The important issue here is the recognition of the connection between women's bodies and the land as expressed by Indigenous women across the world. From Siberia to South America, North America to Australia, Africa to Asia, the Pacific Islands, and to the Indian Ocean islands, both the land and women's bodies have suffered colonialist intrusions, and both colonialist and imperial agendas have capitalized on exploiting women's bodies and land. I don't have time today to go into all the ways in which this occurs, so here is a summary. I have three premises. One, the process of biotechnology is one of separation and fragmentation. Biotechnology reifies the soma, that is the dead body in the ancient Greek language, the body parts, and this separation is an alienation of the self and a philosophy rooted in death, not life. Biotechnology is racist, sexist, ableist, ageist, and classist. And all these ideologies are central to the biotech industry. These features make it clear that biotechnology is ideological science based on a fundamentalist view of the body, which selects out those bodies deemed imperfect. I conclude that the profits made by those with a stake in the biotechnology industry are unconscionable. The profits of biotechnology go to investors and are intended for use on the behalf of the well-off, the healthy and the powerful. The quest for perfection is an ideology of disengagement with violence against the body at its heart. It's a form of weaponizing corporate power through technology against people. Biocolonialism, like its predecessor colonialism, is about theft and making of huge profits. I notice that wealthy white men do not appear as subjects of this theft. It is women, it is the already colonized who are targeted. The colonized are forced to speak the language of the colonizer and can be punished, especially in the case of children, for speaking their mother tongue. This creates yet another layer of dispossession and loss of cultural knowledge in the youngest generation. With loss of language comes loss of knowledge about the environment, the conditions of land, medicinal uses of plants, weather, and important rituals that help to maintain knowledge. The introduction into colonized communities of pornography sets up a cascading effect of and intensification of violence against women. Prostitution becomes the norm. Women are not accorded any respect and loss of culture is magnified. Dehumanization is another aspect of colonization, and the most recent form of dehumanization is not just as a means, but as an end in itself. We see this in the latest move to erase lesbians. Once again, breaking the spirit is key to their strategies. I'm speaking about the internationally US billionaire-funded trans lobby. The process of transitioning is a colonizing one. It is intended to break the spirit of young lesbians and young gay men. Corinna Conn, a transsexual, writes that in a recent conversation with a former partner, they agreed that our experience as teenagers in the trans community was akin to grooming. Breaking the spirit and grooming reinforce gender stereotypes. Hannah Arendt, in her book that was first published in 1951 on the origins of totalitarianism, comments on the nature of elites. She writes, "The elite is not composed of ideologists. Its members' whole education is aimed at abolishing their capacity for distinguishing between truth and falsehood, between reality and fiction. Their superiority consists in their ability immediately to dissolve every statement of fact into a declaration of purpose. If, like Maya Forstater did, any woman who uses male pronouns when referring to trans women, her words are taken as hate speech and a representation of an intention to be violent. That is, they are taken as a declaration of purpose. The elites in this case are the funders of the transgender lobby and transgender NGOs and their acolytes. Dehumanizing means separating people to such an extent from their body that they are prepared to willingly take dangerous drugs for decades at great cost to them and to their bodies and lives. The body that is so integral to feminist politics becomes a throwaway item. So, what does this all have to do with peace and security? As I note above, the breaking of the spirit of people in whichever dispossessed category or categories they belong makes victory by the aggressor so much easier. What Paulo Freire in the 1970s called domestication of the oppressed. But it also fractures the connections between people and increases internecine and horizontal violence. A sense of deep insecurity can be found among all peoples who are colonized. Food security. People who are no longer connected to their traditions don't remember the best ways to farm or where to find important herbs, where and when to gather fruits and fungi. Instead, they become reliant on over-processed foods that damage their health. Bodily security. Violence between men rises as they compete for ever decreasing rewards offered by the colonizers. Women's lives are cheapened and turned into resources for sex, often rape. The pornography and prostitution industries set up in dispossessed communities. Planetary security is threatened as people are fragmented into individualized competing selves. There is no collective vision for a world that is fair and safe. When competition increases, as capitalism demands that it should, everyone is in it for themselves and they cease to care about long-term good. When power is concentrated in the hands of the few, as it is, their only concern is profit. As Vandana Shiva writes in her 1993 book, Monocultures of the Mind, biodiversity cannot be conserved until diversity is made the logic of production. In my book, Wild Politics, Feminism, Globalization and Biodiversity, I proposed that for the planet to survive, we need to shift from a society inspired by money to one inspired by biodiversity. If you are inspired by biodiversity, you can't bomb people and lands. You can't dispossess people of their bodies through technology and biocolonialism. You can't justify the commercial rape of women in prostitution or the appropriation of knowledge for profit. Let us move towards a world in which relationship is important and reciprocity with responsibility is central to social interaction. Then, to paraphrase Cynthia Enloe, when masculinity ceases to be a foreign policy issue, maybe we can look forward to genuine peace and security. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. That was a very powerful presentation. And we can see the links between the masculinist policies, then the effects on the marginalized people, especially the women. And I have several questions in mind, but first we will see if somebody from the chat box or somebody has some questions in the chat box. Or we have yet to wait for the second panel or the panel, another panelist before we can proceed with the question and answer. Oh, so let me introduce our panelist from Bangladesh. Um, she is a fellow, a co-woman activist, and she runs a policy research organization named UBNIG, and she founded a women's resource center named Narigrantha Pravartana, a feminist space for meeting, writing, and organizing women. And she is also a leading exponent of a biodiversity based ecological agriculture, being the organizer of the new agricultural movement named Navakrishi Andolon in Bangladesh. Yeah. Our panelist is also the organizer of Coalition Against DT Brinhal, a GMO food in Bangladesh. And she is also a key organizer of a South Asian network on food security and ecology culture. And lastly, she is a member of the United Women's Front on Violence Against Women and the convener of Women's Alliance Against Tobacco. So let's welcome, and with pride also, I already heard Farida talk way back in 1990s, no? So in her journey, let us hear Farida actor express, no, her paper, which I think is connected with Susan, no, on biodiversity.
Yes.
Let's give her a big welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Farida.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I got disconnected in between, but I knew what Susan was talking. And so first, let me register my protest against the settler colonial state Israel striking bombs on the innocent children, women, and men in Gaza, Palestine since last week, killing and injuring people, damaging residential and official buildings. They have also attacked media houses like Al Jazeera, Associated Press, and injured journalists to stop broadcasting their blatant atrocities and crime against humanity. Israel is the product of a settler colonial project of Euro-American imperialism instituted as the permanent source of aggression, violence, and war against Arab people and Muslims globally. Israel is constituted and existed as the highest form of permanent patriarchal violence. Like all nationalists, we have examples like Hitler, war, persecution of others, and systematic killing is the existential necessity of Zionism, the highest form of grossly masculine and androgenic patriarchy women of the world must oppose and resist. I'm not surprised that, and also but outraged that United States has given open support to Israel. Now, I want to say something about my own country and our own struggles. I'm speaking from a global capitalist patriarchy, it's Bangladesh, which was born through the bloody liberation struggle in 1971. This is known maybe most of you, but what is less known about us is that we have fought for the language, our mother tongue. Language is profoundly a feminine concern. Claiming to speak in the language we learned from mother and demanding the mother tongue to be instituted as a state language is a major political issue for women. not merely to have Bangla as a state language, medium of education and production of knowledge, but also the rise of political consciousness locating in mother tongue, the depository of memory, history, story, myths, and narratives of the community. To that extent, our liberation from endocentric post-colonial state of Pakistan is also a victory of feminine legacies. Many students at that time were martyred and Bangla got recognition. We won the cause and liberated ourselves, but only to fall prey again to the powerful force of new colonialism and new liberalism. Bangladesh is now internationally well known for extrajudicial killing, lack of fundamental rights, and systematic abduction of citizens who oppose the government, unfortunately headed by a woman prime minister. A biological woman as the head of state does not change the endocentric and patriarchal foundation of the modern state. Nevertheless, despite the failure, motherhood is still an issue of feminine concern. Our right to express and articulate ourselves in the language that we learn and inherit from our mother since birth is a great concern of women indeed. When I am speaking to you in English, a colonial language imposed by the British colonial power, I am forced to reckon with history. This is a peculiar situation. I must communicate with you, but I can do it only through a colonial language and not by choice. I carry the patriarchal violence of colonialism as I am speaking to you. I feel marginalized, although you must know that Bangla as a language has been ranked at 7th position among 100 most spoken languages in the world, native and non-native speakers across the globe. So anyway, I'm speaking in English, and now I will give some uh, history, issues in our history that were of concern. There are many things that were there. Um, the European colonization in our region nearly 300 years back. It started with it came by the British East India Company, which came here for spice trade, and spice was needed for meat preservation. But later it was facing competition with Dutch East India Company, so it turned to cotton, silk, indigo dye, tea, and opium. And British East India Company grew so big that and it dominated the global textile trade. And to protect its interests, it has amassed its own army. But Bengali people and Indian people are rebellion. So there was rebellion and uprising against the East India Company, particularly led by Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowlah of Bengal. But Shiraz was defeated by Robert Clive in 1757. Since then, the company took full administrative power over its territory, including the right to tax anyone living within its boundaries. After the rebellion was quelled in June 1858, Queen Victoria abolished company rule in India and established governance under the Viceroy. And then we had for 200 years of colonization called British Raj till 1947 when Indian subcontinent was broken into Pakistan, India, and then later in 1971, Bangladesh broke out from Pakistan. However, historians, mostly males, did not focus on the issues of the colonial brutalities from a gender perspective. I'm sorry that this is hard to find how women are depicted. It is lacking in the history. Almost most of these destructions caused by the and rule, there was significant onslaught was on muslin, a craft. It was a cotton fabric of plain weave, hand woven from an uncommon and delicate yarn. It was so thin that it could go inside a rain. It was found in Bangladesh and the Indian state of West Bengal and was exported to Europe for much of the 17th and 18th century. During British colonial rule in the 18th century, the Bengali muslin industry was ruthlessly suppressed by various colonial policies which favored imports of industrially manufactured textiles from Britain. And we know this story that the muslin weavers' thumbs were cut off so that they cannot make it and do the business here. As a result, quality of muslin suffered greatly and its fineness was nearly lost for 2 centuries. While men were the weavers, women were doing all the processing by hand of muslin. Destruction of muslin led to destruction of an entire community knowledge, skill, as well as their livelihood. Another brutal engagement of the British colonial power was with the farmers, which they forced them to produce indigo, a natural dye. Indigo was identified as a major cash crop for East India Company's investment in the 18th century. It had worldwide demand similar to cotton, opium, and salt. It was cultivated, farmers could cultivate on their own or as royalties, that means in contract with the planters. The British planters made royalties the predominant form of indigo cultivation. The system was inherently exploitative and the growers remained in cumulative debt to the planters. Even the sons had to carry on the debt of the father. And the royalties did not have the right to grow any crop of their own choice, no food crop, nothing except to produce indigo. There was torture, brutalities going on. In 1859, again, there was a rebellion against indigo cultivation, and women participated alongside the weavers and they hold hands together. And this was a very important historical event. I'm giving these examples to show that we did not accept the British colonial rule as it is. We rebelled against them. So that was, we can think that the indigo was stopped, but it did not stop. This British type of colonial cultivation is still going on. Where, for the indigo cultivators, they made a law which made the breach of contract on the part of the buyers a criminal offense. So that means if the planters did not listen to the farmers did not listen to the planters, they could be, jailed, and so it was part of the operation. But nowadays, in this time, we are faced with the same kind of exploitation for tobacco cultivation. It is Virginia tobacco, which is cultivated in Bangladesh by British American Tobacco Company and with the contract farming system, and it is the same system like cumulative indebtedness. And the farmers, if they want to get out of this tobacco cultivation, they are not allowed. Women are suffering from health hazards. They are exploited as laborers, but yet they have to continue in the land where they used to grow crops. So with that, actually, like the indigo and tobacco, our farmers lost their seeds. They could not preserve the medicinal plants and all other plants that were needed for the raising cows, goats, chicken as fodders. And so they were really affected. And British colonial rulers also made land as a private property. For example, the permanent land settlement of Lord Cornwallis in 1793, which formed a class of zamindars and a elite group to collect tax. So they were in between the British colonial rulers and the farmers, and they were exploiting the farmers, and the farmers had to be indebted to pay the taxes. And the greater portion of these profits generated by the export of the trade of agricultural products benefited British business families, big farmers, some Indian traders, and the moneylenders. So, and also I want to give this what Vandana Shivella is this story very much is the sharecroppers movement against the zamindars on 50-50 share basis. It's called Tebhaga Andolon, like the 3 shares. So the zamindars used to take 50% of the produce, whereas they had no contribution, whereas the tenants were doing everything, but yet they were only getting 50% of it. So the Tebhaga Andolon was saying that the sharecroppers must get 2/3 of the produce, and the zamindar, as the owner of the land, will get 1/3 of it. And this movement was led by women and the indigenous people. And it was in like late 40s. And there were songs, Ardebuna, Raktibuna, Dhan Mode Pran Ho. So these kind of songs were there, and they said, we will not give our rice that we sow with our bloods. Now, let me tell you the present day, what is happening. The European Union's Common Agricultural Policy, I think you must be aware of it. It was launched in 1962. Later on, after WTO agreement in 1995, agreement on agriculture, it established like reducing trade, distorting public support. But this common agricultural policy of the Europeans was basically promoting European farmers against the small farmers in poorer countries. So I'm quoting from a report of CAFOD, an UK-based development organization. It says that the CAP and the subsidies and protectionism employed by the other major powers constitute a roadblock on the path to development for dozens of the world's poorest nations. They are preventing them building on their agricultural potential to improve the lives of their poorest people and communities. Developing country farmers and governments see the CAP as that you liberalize and we subsidize. Like for Europe, they subsidize the cows with $2.20 per day, which is more than the income of the half of the world's population per day, which is less than $2. So the farmers in the developed countries have to contend with the timber produced by the heavily subsidized agriculture in Europe. So rich countries, their farmers are taking trade in Asia, Africa, America. So now I'm just coming to the close of my talk, but here I want to make one point. The British actually colonized and destroyed men, because the British East India Company and the rulers were actually making male and female slave labor, mostly for their work, but then they made the men feel like demeaned. They demeaned them. They have to be emasculated, and women have to be subjugated. So the men were like irrational, backwards, mysterious, and exotic, and even to the British colonial power, they were like feminine. So we are finding that these, I'm quoting one author, Clark, he says, act of feminizing or investigating men not only left a significant anti-colonial sentiment among the Indian people, created a society of strict gender norms within India that would lead to and continues to create female oppression. So this demeaning of men actually created further female oppression in our countries. As a method of reclaiming masculinity for men, the public and the private spheres became excessively separated. In the colonial era, the treatment of women within the public and private life became increasingly more oppressive, with men asserting their own dominance after centuries of being feminized and oppressed by the company and the colonial rule. So, and also and still we do use uh, the British colonial rulers call men the gentlemen. That means men have to be gentle and they have to be dressed properly to be gentle. And you can notice that there is no female word for gentleman. They call women ladies. That means whether women are gentle or not does not matter. But women are lucky to be out of this colonial outfit. So, so basically, the British colonial rulers have destroyed our agriculture, our biodiversity, but we are still going on. Our farmers are fighting against it, and so that's important that we fought the British colonial rulers, and still we are fighting against their legacies. I think I want to quote one thing from Susan Hawthorne. She says in her book, Vortex, the global structures are not just affecting humans, the planet, its animals and plants, glaciers, wetlands, seas and mountains, deserts and farmlands, forests and rivers are all feeling the effect of vortex. Climate change, increasing rates of extinction and pollution of all kinds are among the environmental disasters of capitalism without compassion or conscience. These constitute the crimes of neoliberal capitalist patriarchy. They are wars against all who live on the planet. We are at a crisis point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farida. It is unfortunate that some parts of your talk were not clear because, well, this is the limitation of having our online meetings, and we are affected by the technology. No, this is a very good venue because we also have many participants from different countries who are sometimes, when you have a meeting face to face, many others cannot come. With an online meeting like this, we have the opportunity to meet. And so maybe what we can do, we know who the women and men who attended this event. Maybe later we can get copies of the talk of Susan and Farida and send to those who attended here. So that, especially for the talk of Farida, because I think it's the uh, also the internet in Bangladesh, Farida, which may be a challenge. But of course, it's not only in Bangladesh; it's in many countries where we have this. Of course, we know that technology is not controlled by the people. Anyway, but thank you very much for that very intensive discussion about the experience of the people, especially the women of Bangladesh, with colonialism, particularly the British colonization. Now, to continue our forum, we will be showing a brief video because we have reactions from women, many of them members of the Peace Women Partners. They have a reaction on how the patriarchy and colonialism lead to the current policies which continue to affect the lives of women and children. So, Liam, can we now show the video?
Talking about patriarchy, there are many ramifications on the gendered aspect. And if we take up the case of pandemic and in the Indian context, well, there are issues of the disparity in terms of livelihood, in terms of domestic violence, which also has been observed globally. So why is it that this particular aspect of women disempowerment happens, as a part of patriarchy during such a situation when the pandemic affects all? So it is in this context that I would like to bring forth the requirement, the need to combat gender disparity, and that there should be women-friendly laws and situation that could really combat any of the issues that negatively affect women more so in the pandemic. And here, in terms of the migrant population, in terms of women who are employed in the rural sector on the farm, so they are the ones who lose out on their livelihood right away, and they just exit the group. And with coupled with all the work that they have to do at home, so that kind of a patriarchal part where it is kind of taken for granted that women would be at the loser end is something which needs to be taken care of. So within the dimensions of patriarchy, it's important that we look into both the situation that could really better the lives of men and women, and not that just the women has to face the brunt.
Hello, greetings to everyone. Me, Madhavi Marma, from Chittagong Hill Tracts of Bangladesh. In Chittagong Hill Tracts, the indigenous women are also facing various oppressions by the patriarchal society like others. Here, 10 different communities, women cannot inherit over their father's property, except Marma community, and a woman cannot lead or hold a traditional position. And for not maintaining marriage registration, polygamy is going high. Tourism gives us a new dimension of violence because there are no specific policy for tourism. Some profit-seeking people tempted local poor girl for the prostitution. Women's free movings area are reduced. Natural beauty and the environmental condition of CHT are also in danger. We protest for all of these anomalous activities. Thank you.
It has a big impact, especially to the youth if they aren't go to school. Mostly in the Philippines, the reason why they stop in schooling because of the problem in financial. That's why they are working at the young age more than they can do. The problem and the government, even before, they are not prioritize the child laborers, but instead they focus on the other things that are useful. That's why the children are not interested to go to school because they feel that they are not prioritized. At their young age, they started working, gambling, using drugs, or something that is not right for them. Their parents allow them to do that because if they didn't do it, they didn't eat for a day. So the Department of Labor and Employment in the Philippines has a project to enumerate the child laborers and to give their assistance for them to quit on working. And hoping after we help them as one of the employers of the Department of Labor and Employment that focusing on child laborers, they stop in working.
Dear sisters, I'm speaking from Osaka, Japan, and my name is Hisae Ogawa. And I'm in charge of Code Pink Osaka. This is the name of our group. And we engage local actions in Osaka and also global actions together with sisters all over the world, like you. So it's our honor to tell a brief situation of women in Osaka and women in Japan generally. And the big issue right now in Osaka is that our governor and mayor, we have Osaka City and Osaka Prefecture, big Osaka area. And they are really, they are doing a very bad job and in under the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have to protest them every day. And particularly our medical fee, to cover our medical fee, and for elder women, it's a pension for elderly women. That's really a big problem now. And so let me tell you a brief system of Medicare and pension scheme in Japan. The Medicare subsidy cover certain part of our Medicare when we go to see doctors, but only a part of it, not the whole fee we have to pay anyway. And as for pension scheme, we have double system, the national and private from the private fund. And senior women who are most of the senior women depend on national fund, and the amount they receive every 2 months, we receive some certain pension, but that the amount is not enough to make their living. So we have to protest and every day. But yet the national government, they are trying to reduce the subsidies in many tricky ways. So the amount is getting less and less. So we are having a hard time. So we keep protesting the government so that to make our more safe living and safe Medicare. That's the thing I really want to share with you all. Thank you.
The plight of the women and the working class is deteriorating. Women workers are now jobless, endure hunger, and are desperate for livelihoods as capitalism struggles to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and economic crisis. But the present conjuncture is also an opening to reimagine a radical restructuring of society, where the needs of people, not profit, come first. Women holds no nostalgia for the old normal of neoliberal capitalism, characterized by cheap wages, joblessness, privatized services, and lack of protection. Instead, the working class must spearhead the framing of the new normal as a system where workers are valued for their wealth-creating labor, and the people enjoy by rights the things necessary for a decent life, full employment, a living wage, a universal health care, quality education, social protection, and a clean and safe environment, a voice in their workplaces and in society. We call on women workers to resist and fight back, organize and strengthen the women's movement, not only in the Philippines, but internationally. Let us hold hands together, increase our power through organizing, unity, and solidarity.
Hello, I am Song Choi from Jeju, Korea. I am honored to join you. I am living in Gangjang Village, Jeju, South Korea. The word Gang and Jong both mean water. Gangjang is a village of water. The village had been called a diamond of Jeju for its excellent natural environment, including fresh, clean, and abundant water, until the Jeju Navy base was forcefully built here in 2016, despite the people's huge protest to it. Now, the Navy and Jeju Island government are enforcing military road across the upper stream, given the fact that the water above feeds tens of thousands of people's drinking water. It is a crime. The construction also deregulated the water's natural phenomenon, affecting a sacred tree, a natural monument, to lose a big part of its body. Flooding a palm field next to the stream with sand. The columnar joint walls in both sides of the stream is being cracked with some parts collapsing. Island Miss Mandarin dogs, another natural monument, who were found dead, hit by shotguns or unknown reasons. Even though the government has asserted that the base is for peace and security, the truth has been totally opposite for the people here. No peace and security under militarism. Thank you.
If you have a chance to go to Okinawa after this pandemic is over, I highly recommend you to go up north and visit the Yambaro area, where you will see the beautiful forest of rich biodiversity and the main water source for the entire island. You will also meet residents of Takae, a small community in the forest. To protect their quiet life and the precious nature, they are fighting for more than 10 years against the destruction of Yambaro Forest by the US military. What the militarization has brought is cuts of thousands of trees, destruction of habitats for endangered species, military trash, land contamination, noise pollution by military aircraft, and their accidents. While continuing to protest against the militarization, Takai residents are practicing the sustainable future they envision, such as growing vegetables and chickens in their farm community farm. They are also making connections and raising voice together with people of other areas who have also been suffering from militarization. So when this pandemic is over, I look forward to seeing you all in Takai someday. My name is Mizuki Nakamura, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
We have heard reactions from some of the women in the Peace Women Partners Network. And I would like to invite now Ms. Yena Torres from the Mindanao Tri-People Women Resource Center in the Philippines to also share her reaction.
Hey, hello everyone. In Mindanao, Philippines, we work with women from the three groups of peoples: the migrant settlers, majority Crescenais, the Islamized Bangsamoro, and the indigenous peoples communities. Being colonized by superpower countries for 500 years or even more, Spain as the longest, this had left a huge influence on our socioeconomic political lives. The migrant settlers population in Mindanao, to whom among the culture being inculcated is the culture of submissiveness, handed down by generations to generations until to date. The deepening economic crisis, the liberalization of economy, and the opening up of the labor market to women gives women certain economic independence. However, in many cases, the economic opportunities did not help change the domestic responsibilities of women, thereby creating double, if not multiple, burdens. The capitalist crisis impacted as well the Islamized Bangsamoro communities. We know for the fact that armed conflicts and displacement push women to take on the risk of unsecured labor migration just to have her family to survive. But when traditional practice of polygamy allows a husband to send his several wives to abroad to work as domestic labor while the husband back home decide on what to do on their remittances. Lastly, it's about how war and peace made the suffering of indigenous women even more. When during armed conflict, they extremely suffered from violence and displacement, and yet during peacetime, when peace agreements endangered ancestral lands, subjected to be transformed into peace and development zones, designed with capitalist orientation and neoliberal development paradigm. Any peace efforts, even though there is a woman or women in the peace table or in the room, as long as these efforts and agreements do not directly benefit women and depict meaningfully their voice and aspiration, we will never reach genuine peace and security at all. We need to intensify even more the tri-people women solidarity and struggle and launch a more intersectional struggle globally against patriarchy and capitalism. Thank you, and let us continue to fight back. Thank you.
Thank you, Iena. We are now ready to go to the question and answer part of our discussion. And our two main speakers, Farida and Susan, are here to answer questions. Sharings, of course, are also welcome, but let us limit our time. We have 21 minutes available for the Q&A. You can type your question in the chat box, and also you can also directly ask our speakers. So far, I do not see a question in the chat box, but there's somebody raising his or her hand.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay. So it's yours now.
Is it okay to
Proceed.
ask Miss Susan Hawthorne? Because I'm not familiar with the transgender advocacy, but I was enlightened a bit about what you said of making our body just a throwaway thing, something like that. Does it mean that transitioning from one body to another is also a form of mental colonization, something like that?
That's a very good way to put it. And I think that, I mean, there are simply just two sexes. There are women, there are men. And while some people have intermediate things and they are intersex people, they still are either female or male. But the most horrifying part of all of this, and I think you're right about it being mental colonization, is that there are huge amounts of funds slushing around the globe. They are provided by billionaires, mostly US based. Also, most of them own pharmaceutical companies or medical product companies, and they stand to gain huge profits. When HRT was, put out as a thing for aging women, menopausal women, that was hugely profitable, and feminists criticised them. But that was only for, a few years after menopause. these kids are starting at something like 15 and taking drugs for the rest of their lives. And the other problem is that they're going to have extraordinarily bad reactions over the decades, if they last that long, to the drugs. And in the meantime, the billionaires are running away with lots of money and profits. So that, when I had not done the background research until I was writing Vortex, and that was what really shocked me, the dire effects, the lifelong effects, and the profits being made. And it's just the same pattern of colonization, neoliberalism, profit mongering, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it fits the pattern.
Yeah, it fits the pattern. Thank you for your answer. I was enlightened actually.
Great question.
There is a comment from Lot de la Cruz, which I think our speakers and maybe some others could respond to. Presi, can you be the one to read it in the chat box?
From Lot. First, can you read it? I cannot find it yet.
Okay.
I can read it out if you like. With the sharing and talks from our speakers, I just want to know how we women around the globe work together to fight against patriarchy.
Oh, yes. Lot from Lot. So both of you can answer that.
So Rita, you've done some wonderful conferences.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, it's time, even though there is this pandemic and we are not able to come together physically, but I think the need for coming together in whatever form it is, and I think this conference is also one of them, that we need to share our ideas and our struggles at the national level and also at the global level more and more. We cannot stop. We cannot afford to stop. We have seen from the colonial time that it was only when there was rebellion, it was only when the people got together, they could get rid of these colonial rulers, which was supposed to be so strong and so powerful on people. So why not, but nowadays the problem is our enemies are sometimes like sitting next to us, we don't see them. They are like providing food to us. They are in our supermarkets, all our enemy foods are there. You go to the supermarket, all the GMO foods, all the corporations that are actually funding the killings and the wars in many other countries like Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola, we are embracing them. So I think these are also part of our struggle. Also, our lifestyle should be part of the struggle, that we have to resist against the those who are oppressing us. And at the, I believe that the rural women, the women that we think that they are ignorant, do not have education, they are much more powerful in organizing themselves, because they do what is needed to be done on the ground, and they are surviving on that. So we have to learn from them. And I think this is one of the things that inspires me and keeps me alive in my own struggle.
And I think, the other thing is that climate change is certainly upon us. And in Australia, because we have dire climactic events, including droughts, floods, cyclones, coral bleaching, and in 2019-20, the absolutely catastrophic bushfires. And those bushfires burnt out 18.6 million hectares It's a huge amount of land, much of it caused by very bad forest management, which has been going on for decades. And this is in spite of the fact that Indigenous people throughout Australia have had traditional burning methods that instead of doing back burning, which set off big fires, they do these cultural burns that are very small burns, but that burn low level of the grass and the understory and so forth. And it's an extraordinary thing. And I mean, I've been hearing about it for at least 3 decades, but until these catastrophic fires, it was not part of the general conversation. And, you know, each of us can bring, from where we come, each of us can bring these different experiences. And I mean, as you have, Farida, and in fact, I wouldn't have written the 2 books I mentioned in my talk without having known Farida and having gone to her conference in 1993. So, you know, that set me on this path. So sometimes it takes one conference to change your life.
Or meeting people, you know.
Yes, that's what I mean. You know, the thing about conferences is meeting people and having long conversations and realizing that your experiences are different, but equally fabulous or dreadful or whatever is the case.
Are there any more questions?
Can I add some thoughts to that very important point mentioned by Lot Lot, who is from Davao City, Philippines? Truly, and maybe I will just read what UN Abana said. Increase our power through organizing, unity, and solidarity. Strengthen the women's movement on the local and international um, sphere or fronts. Uh, there are many big organizations of women. There are small organizations, and I believe that uh, all of these groups play important roles. I would just like to acknowledge that we have Jean Enriquez of the Coalition Against Trafficking of Women in the Philippines, and I know she has a big role also in the global movement. My point here is that there are many women already who are doing organizing work, information dissemination, like what Susan is doing. So let us just continue. No? And of course, now it's very good that we have these opportunities through online, but also we see the limitations. So maybe I don't know if we could, for example, have email contacts of those who are here if you would like to continue being in touch, because Facebook and email communications offer opportunities. Now, I would just like to plug in maybe because Susan has mentioned her 2 books. Susan is very prudent and modest. Maybe you would like Susan to put in the chat box a link to the Spinifex Press, which publishes feminist books. And this is also one way of how we, share our ideas. Is that okay, Susan? If you could put a link to Spinifex Press? Okay.
Mercy Kamlabasin is saying something. Hello. Kamlabasin is saying something.
Hello, Kamla.
Was there someone asking a question, Pressy? You're mute.
University of Indonesia.
Yes.
Something, can we read it from the chat? She says, my name is Sheila Ramadina, a student from Sriwijaya University in Indonesia. I would like to thank all speakers for giving us a great insight from this discussion. However, I would like to ask a question to all speakers about how do the national media react to feminism movement to stop patriarchy and unite women from all over the world? From what I've learned, that some countries didn't really care about this movement. Thank you. That's their comment and question.
Yeah. So shall I add?
Yes.
Okay. No, I think the media is patriarchal as well. You know, they like to focus on the victimization of women, but not the real movement of the woman, which is against patriarchy. That they don't see those struggles of women which are done on the grounds, led by women, and you know, that they are taking on general issues, but they would focus on like dowry issues or rape and these kind of things. So in these movements, media is responding positively in favor of women's movement, but on the broader issues, on the structural questions of patriarchy, they are not, they don't understand. And I think this is because of their own mindset, patriarchal mindset, that they look at women as a somebody who can't think very much, you know, on the political level, on philosophical level. So they are not taking it with so much importance. That is what my experience is.
Yeah, my experience is very similar, and the media is often interested in watered down feminism, or what I have come to call neoliberal feminism. But they are not interested in radical feminism. They're not interested in on the ground feminism where real things are happening. And as Farida said before, the colonizers didn't take any notice until they started rebelling. And it's the same for feminists. I joined the movement in 1973. We made a lot of noise and we did get some media coverage, but it wasn't until we really started acting up and doing things that were worthy of coverage by the media. And I think the same moment is happening now. And so we have to continue to make as much noise and make them feel as uncomfortable as possible.
Yes.
In order that they have to sit up and think. And a famous journalist in Australia recently bragged on TV that he was reading Germaine Greer's The Second Sex. And I think, well, you should have read it 70 years ago. I mean, you know, or at least 50 years ago, given his age. But, you know, it's just they have not read feminist work for 50 odd years. They don't know where we're coming from. They don't get it. And some of them now think, oh, maybe I should read something. And it's great. This guy's reading Simone de Beauvoir. But many, many, many thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of women have read have written extraordinary things since then. And they don't listen, they don't want to know, and we have to push it in front of their faces and make them read and listen.
Thank you, Paul. There's also another comment from the chat, and can I read it? That one. What is coca? In the case on coca, taking advantage much for people, but at the same time, there are also people who get benefit from coca. So how could we do to let other people thinking about it? It's about coca, something like that.
No, the question is, when it is done as a plantation, this cocoa can be good to some people, no doubt about it. But when it is done, anything, any good thing also, when it is done as plantation and using people as slaves to work for them and are forced to do it, you cannot support it. So it's not against coca per se. It is the form of cultivation, form of production of it. So you have to change the form of production. So that's how we can respond to that.
Thank you. And there's another comment here. It's about the body. I think it's about the biological body.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I'd like to offer that biological sex is more complicated than a male-female binary allows, and that there really isn't many found circulating in the trans community for the surgery or other forms of transition as evident, but the ever-present founding campaigns for such things.
Now I know that
the transgender.
Yeah, I know there are not funds in the trans community for surgery. The problem is that anyone entering into that system, whether it's through taking hormones or puberty blockers or going through surgery, they are spending money that is going to people who already have enormous amounts of money. The surgeons make a huge amount of money. Every pharmaceutical company, whether it's painkillers, whether it's other kinds of drugs that are necessary in order for the body to function properly after surgery and the like, they are the ones who get the money. I am not suggesting that the trans community has the money, but the other thing is that actually you are wrong about biological sex being more complicated than male and female. The male and female chromosomes are in every single cell in the body, and biologists know this, and even some biologists have been conned and some medicos have been conned, but in fact there are only two sexes. There are different ways of expressing the two sexes, and the gender is not biological. Gender can never be biological. It is a social construct. So I hope that answer helps you think more about this. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that enlightening answer. Any more questions from the chat? This is a thank you note from Sung Hae Choi from South Korea. Thanks so much for the organizers to make this wonderful forum. I thank Susan and Farida for your insights as well. I am sorry that I have to leave. Oh, she has to leave now. Sorry. Yeah. So there's no more question in the chat box. It's okay to turn into you, Mercy, for the synthesis and wrapping up.
Thank you very much, Pressy, for patient moderation. And of course, first of all, to our keynote speaker and panel, keynote speaker to Susan and Farida. And you have discussed very complicated topics. Complicated in the sense that these are not ordinarily discussed in the mainstream discussions. Somebody was asking about media. You will not read about patriarchy and colonization in any mainstream media. Of course, there are the alternative media by the NGOs. And of course, I would like to thank the reactors. Actually, we recorded in advance the reactions because we know that some women have limitation coming on live, and I'm very happy that Yena was able to come in live, because Mindanao also is one of those areas which is famous or infamous for bad internet connection. So thanks to all the women, even if some of them are not here, but they can watch. All of you can watch the recording. This video is being recorded, and it will be posted in the AEPF website. And of course, there were some comments because especially during the talk of Farida, which was affected by internet connection, we will try to have the documentation of this, and we will reach out to you. Maybe I'll put my email address below, so you could email me, no? As a representative of the Peace Women Partners. Before I forget, I would like to acknowledge that we have an interpreter for the Cambodians, Mr. Sakhan Kom. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sakhan, for patient interpretation. No? And I hope that our Cambodian friends learned from this discussion. Just very quick summing up points. I will not dare to give a summing up of all the talks, and I hope that we can have more of these discussions. The Peace Women Partners will look for other venues. In fact, we also from time to time hosting our own webinars, so we hope to be in touch with you. But I would just like to say, relevant to the discussion on peace and security, Susan explained the different dimensions of security. We have food security because even if you silence the guns, if the people in the community have no food, then the armed conflict surely will continue. And I think that's already a challenge which is being faced, for example, in Mindanao. But that will be for another webinar, I think, Yena, because the conflict in Mindanao is still going on. Bodily security is very important to us women. Of course, it's not only women whose bodily security is being affected. But I'll go back to the reaction by Miss Madavi Marma from the Chittagong Hills tribes, that because of the tourism, unwanted tourism in their beautiful land, the women were forced into prostitution. So because they're economically, they need a food security, but they're forced into prostitution. So the bodily security of women is affected. And prostitution, violence against women, these are peace and security concerns. And of course, we also know that in times of war, it is the women's bodies who are mostly affected. And the war is waged in the women's bodies. And of course, very important to us all is because it affects everyone, the planetary security. Related to this are the issues of global warming. And now, this pandemic, which threatens the whole security of all the people in the world and the balance in our planet. But that's for another full series of webinars, I'm sure. So just to, again, I'm not attempting to summarize, just linking these issues to further discussions, which I hope we can continue to conduct. Of course, I would like to plug in the Asia-Europe People's Forum is ongoing until May 20. Is that right? And they just posted the website of the AEPF. You can get all the information. There are still many good, very interesting, very informative, important forums where we can learn so many topics. Because I'm sure you are here because you want to learn more about peace and security and other issues which the Asia-Europe People's Forum is tackling. Oh, I stand corrected. It's until May 24. So there's still many forums which you can attend, and the website is AEPF. There they posted the full program here in the chat box. Please look. And yeah, the website is www.aepf.info. This recording of our meeting will be posted, of course, after the whole AEPF. Just to plug in also, Peace Women Partners has no website as of now, but we have a Facebook page, Peace Women Partners International. So maybe you could like and we could continue sharing because this discussion on patriarchy and its effect on women, women's bodies, on the planet, this should be an ongoing discussion. We should continue our solidarity work until we win. Of course, that's a long, long time probably, but I'm sure one day it will happen. So there are some messages still from our chat box. So thanks to everyone. I would just like to call Susan and Farida just some closing messages. Sorry, a few sentences only. Maybe we can end by 8 o'clock, 10 minutes in my time. Thank you, Susan and Farida. Just some closing messages.
Well, this is a bit of impromptu, but thank you for the invitation to come and speak. And also, it's great to hear Farida speaking, even if occasionally it was a little unclear, but I could still hear what you were saying. And it was also really great to see the reactions of the reactors and such a range of extraordinary women talking about, where they're coming from, their experiences, and the politics that are important in their lives. And that was great to hear that, to see that, hear it. Yep. Thank you to all of you for that.
Thank you, Mercy, Cora, and everybody. Because of your effort, this could happen. I'm sorry that due to actually the power went off, so it was on generator that I had to talk. So I think that created some problem. But I think we have to challenge this kind of technology dependency also, that it should not stop us from uniting virtually or even in our dreams. I think we have to find a way of even connecting in any form we want to. Actually, today I was more busy from the morning, from last night. A woman journalist was arrested and she was actually held in one room of the Ministry of Health because she was reporting on the corruption that was done on the COVID-related, works of the Ministry of Health. And she was arrested the whole night. She was in the police custody, and in the morning she was so. From the morning we were busy in supporting her through Facebook and different forms. So I just wanted to refer to this as a part of our struggle. And this will go on. And I thank you, Susan, also, because Susan, you have been so, inspiring, and you have this way of taking in by mixing with people. So that is really very rare that I find among people. Thank you.
So again, thanks to everyone. First of all, to our speakers, our reactors, and all who attended this webinar. And my last word is that let us continue our communicating, working with each other, because there are so many issues that need our unity and solidarity. And of course, last word is the Asia Europe People's Forum is until May 24. Go into their website and see all the very important discussions. So have a good day, afternoon, or evening to all of you. And again, in behalf of the Peace Women Partners and other organizations that are here, thank you very much.